Welcome back. If you joined us for part one, I'm so glad you're here for part two. And if you're just jumping in, you may want to go back and start there. Either way, let's dive in. You have this breakthrough, you're like, screw it, I'm going to Mexico. You sell everything, you move there. And I'm really interested. You came back and came back into not the same place, but like the same role. So I'm really interested in when you said, okay, I knew I was going to come back in October or whatever. What happened internally during that time, knowing like the struggle that you had previously? What made you come back into it? Was it just like, oh, this is what I know, this is what I'm doing? Or was there something that you're like, or what, or was it like, oh, I'll be better now because, I've had this nice long, uber long vacation?
Yeah, it's a layered response, I think. I think the easiest way to respond to this is just like the relationships in my life, the personal relationships where I just needed to be slapped upside the head, flattened out, right? Gone to the extremes to just finally decide to cut it off and let it go. I did the same with my career. It was like I was just like I'm just going to give it one more shot. I'm going to come back and give it one more shot. There wasn't anything super devastating about the former, when I was in Chicago and that before I'd gone to Mexico. It was just that I wasn't excited about what I was doing. I was working around adults. I wasn't really focused on kids. I was constantly being told I was too much this, too much that, and I was constantly navigating, division because I was a change agent. I wanted to come in and make change happen, and I was fighting a bunch of people that didn't want change to happen. And I thought that year off would just give me kind of a break from all of that, and I would come back. But I knew that if I was coming back, like this was its final shot. Maybe things will be different. Maybe I'll go to I'm going to try a high school versus a middle school, right? That's kind of what I was doing before I'd gone to Mexico. I'll go try this other type of school district. I wanted to give it one last fair shot because I was really good at what I did. I was a great leader, I was a great teacher, and I was a great principal, even though there are plenty of people out there who probably would think otherwise. But I know that I was really good. Um, and so I wanted to give it one last shot, and it cost me, right? It cost me, but I don't think that I would be where I am today if I had done it any differently.
You talk about, and this is tied to that. You talk about how high achieving women are really, they're taught to follow the rules, seek approval, stay
Mm.
within the systems. So at what point do you think you realized you needed to stop looking outside yourself and trusting your own voice? Because here you are, like I said, you left, blew everything up, went to Mexico, then you came back, probably because some of that was, marinating in your head a little bit.
Mm.
Like, what was there a point where you realized like I need to trust my own voice and I need to stop looking outside of myself?
I think I mean, here's the thing. I was always breaking the rules, right? First of all, I was single until 47. Like, I never got married until 47. So there were very few principals that I know. I'm sure that there's more now, but back when I was a principal, sitting in that seat, no kids, not married, like there are all kinds of stories just thrown out there. I was moving from, you know, LA to, first of all, I moved from my hometown to San Diego. I'd never been to San Diego. This was when I was 24, right? That was like first, and everything worked out fine. Moved from San Diego back to Seattle by myself, Seattle back to San Diego, lost everything in a wildfire, moved to LA. I moved to all these different places betting on myself, by myself. And so I had plenty of script telling me I've followed my heart before and it always worked out. But the career felt bigger. I think it felt bigger because of the money. And I know that this is where a lot of women that I work with, when they want change, that's the first thing that they talk about is the money, right? I can't leave. Maybe it's their
That's
marriage
tough.
even, right?
Well,
Can't.
you get used to a certain lifestyle. You get used to like like, oh my gosh, the stress of like leaving a particular career or a particular salary, you're like, how am I going to make ends meet, or how am I going to manage this now that
Hmm.
I've grown accustomed to spending this money and I have all these bills now? I think it's a big concern for many people. 100%.
Yeah, it is. And here's the thing. Whenever you're going to make major change happen, you're going to have to sacrifice. Right? It's
Yeah.
not easy. If it was that easy to change, everybody would be doing it all of the time. And when
Yep.
you have spent 25 years like I did, or any, good portion of time in whatever setting, it could be a marriage, relationship, could be your career, whatever that is, and you're deciding like I don't want this anymore. Um and this is what I want, there are going to be things that you're probably going to have to sacrifice in order to get to where you want. I didn't realize that what I was searching for this whole time was freedom. The freedom to be me, the freedom to have my own schedule, the freedom to make my own rules, the freedom to live the life that I wanted to live without anybody micromanaging me, from anywhere. I couldn't even have social media accounts because people were always trying to find dirt on me, right? Like,
Right.
I just wanted the freedom to just be fully me and nobody tell me otherwise. I I was so wrapped up in the money and that lifestyle that I didn't realize until I got out of it, right? Until I got out of my career and I started wasn't getting job interviews and I wasn't making money, that I realized, the further that had gone, that I was trying to get from education and get into a corporate job. I think it was about 6 or 7 months out of that. I was like, wait a second, why am I trying to get back from one box into another box? Why am I
Right.
trying to go from
Right.
one box into another box? Right. So I just went off on a tangent here. I think what you asked is about like what was it that made me just finally trust the heart, like break the rules? I had been breaking the rules my entire life. I even go back to my childhood in which I was breaking the rules as a kid. Nobody knew I was, because I was a good student and great athlete. Nobody knew that I was, behind the scenes driving my mom's car at 15 years old. Sorry, mom. She'll watch this eventually. Right? I've always been testing the boundaries and breaking the rules. And I've been allowing people to just put me in the box. And that's when we talk about what they call success. Right? That's the box, is what everybody, I'm not going to say it's just white men, like old white men who made the system, but I feel like that's where it comes from, of like, basically, here's what success looks like. You go to college, right? You get your degree, you get married, you have kids, you find a great job, you stay there, maybe you find another place within the same line of work, but you basically stay in that until you're 55, 60, and then you live happily, you retire and you live happily ever after. And those aren't the rules that I want to play by. I want to live my life exactly as I want to live them. And here's what I know. When women get into their midlife, they get into the late 30s, early 40s, and we talked about this in the beginning, they see that tunnel and they can't see the light. They're like, what am I doing? That's when the walls start caving in and they start thinking and dreaming and imagining of what life will be like beyond what they're currently in right now.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because we do get boxed in, especially if you're in corporate or if you're in some kind of structure like you were with, you're like, what do I do now? Well, how do I get to,
Yeah.
what is the top? How do I get to the top? I think a lot of times women, we are so focused on getting to the top and achieving that. And then you get there and you're like, well, shit, now what? Now what am I doing with my life? Like, do you think, you mentioned earlier a fire burning down everything you had.
Mm.
And then metaphorically that happened later in your life when you moved to Mexico. But do you think that that experience allowed you a little bit more freedom? I know you were always a wild child and you were always kind of like marching to the beat of your own drum, but do you think that experience, that's really traumatic and that's really hard because we collect these things and sometimes they have a lot of meaning to us and it's like,
Mm.
oh my god, I can't help, how can I, you know but do you think that that experience allowed you to live a little bit more freely because you already went through that and that kind of like destroyed whatever organized life you had put into
Mm.
that box for yourself.
Yeah, I didn't realize how significant that fire was for me. That it was a wildfire. I remember it was right before my 30th birthday, and I remember saying, God must have burned it all down in order because I was just turning 30 for me to because he knew that it was time to start a new chapter and to leave the
Wow.
past behind. I also was in a dysfunctional relationship at that time too, which some stuff happened all around the same time. Well, I don't. I don't know if I'm answering the question because I we're talking about two fires. We're talking about the actual fire and then
And the
and then
metaphorical fire. No,
it,
I just feel like, we all go through different traumas in our lives, and they really dictate how we function and how we handle different circumstances that we then come upon throughout our life. And so my question was really just because you had mentioned the forest fire, the literal fire, if that helped you as you got older, being really willing to, did it help you get through the metaphorical fire of of when you then burnt it all down to go to Mexico, just simply because you weren't, we're so tied to things sometimes. We're so like, speaking of golden handcuffs, not necessarily golden handcuffs of your stuff. Like, of course, everybody wants their stuff, but just, the idea or the concept that, like, wow, this is all gone now. Like, whatever I had been collecting or building is gone. So, like, did it give you freedom to like make these wild decisions, or do you think it had any effect? I mean, I'm sure it had an effect on how you then looked at life moving forward. But have you ever thought of that, or has that ever been something that you've put any weight into?
yeah, I don't know if I've made that connection because I was a nomad before that. Like I had moved already by the time that had happened. So I had moved to San Diego, to Seattle, back to San Diego when it happened. And there's just so much purging that happens every time you move to a new place because you don't know, when you're renting apartments, you don't know what kind of place you're moving into. So, I'd moved by the beach. And so the place by the beach is going to be a lot smaller than the place I was living in Seattle. So I was constantly purging. And so I never got attached really to any of the material things. It also, like, this has just been an aha for me over the last 6 months as I've been, working on my business and figuring out like what are the blocks for me in my business is that I really never valued money either. Right. So the purge, burning it all down, right? And going and living for a year in Mexico. It's just like, I didn't really money mattered only if it gave me like the gratification that I was looking for in that moment to escape my own reality. Again, that's probably a whole nother podcast in of itself. But I think that I just didn't really care. Like it's funny, it's kind of the both ends. It's like I really cared about the material stuff, but then I was quick to let it go whenever I moved. Easily purged it. So
So, as someone that is accustomed to change and seems to be very easy with change, one of your core messages is that setting boundaries isn't selfish; it's necessary. Why do you think so many women struggle with that, even when they know something needs to change? Like, what do you think it is that is why do so many women struggle with that?
I I mean, I think the easiest answer is that I think so many of us have been taught to not set those boundaries, to be everything for everyone else. I mean, that has been, especially for us as Gen Xers, um, later millennials, elder millennials. We've been taught, media everywhere around us was telling us that we were the people. We weren't meant to necessarily be the breadwinners, to be, sitting in these leadership seats. It was kind of we conquered something major when we climbed the ladder and got into these big seats. And at the same time we were doing that, we were also, taught to be domesticated and take care of our families and take care of our parents and take care, be Depends on the kind of childhood you grew up in, but I grew up in a very, hyper vigilant. I was on alert all the time and was making sure that I was filling the gaps where I could fill the gaps. And I carried that into my adulthood. And there's so many women out there who are like that, right? We overthink, we overanalyze, we play every scenario out in our heads. We're always wondering what everybody else is thinking about us, right? Instead of really just focusing on us and what it is that we need and what it is that we want. And that's where you establish the boundaries of saying, how do I serve myself in these situations? So I think that a lot of it was just taught to us. So it's really kind of breaking the barriers, breaking those rules of what we had been taught for so long to be, even if we were at that VP level, C-suite level, principal, whatever it is, we were still forced to not only hold that identity, but also hold the identity of being everything to everyone else except for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on for sure. What you're building now? Okay, so we know you went to Mexico, you burned it all down, you came back, you found out, okay, no, just kidding. That is really not for me. So what you're doing now, you've now built a completely different life and are helping other women do the same. What are you focused on right now, and how can women connect with you on or work with you? How can they find you? What tell us all about all the things you're doing.
Yeah, well, I'm doing a lot. I feel like I'm doing probably too much. This has been a journey to get here, right? Building my business. I had no sense when I left my career. Entrepreneur was not at the forefront of my thinking ever. I just happened to stumble into this, going into a business partnership with somebody. And I didn't even know it was women that I was going to be working with, but that business partnership led me to wanting to empower women to step into their full truth, right? To not hide behind what everybody else might want for them, and what they want for themselves through them is really helping women step into that full truth. What that means for them is basically uncovering all the things that they're not feeling great about in their life right now. Really, what are the limiting beliefs that are keeping them stuck? And specifically working with midlife women, I'm really calling in the past version of me into my coaching, right? The women who are saddled in everybody else's truth but their own, and are really searching for ways to step into a newfound freedom, and a place where they can be authentically themselves and feel good about it and not worry about what everybody else is thinking of them. So I've got a few ways in which I get to work with people now. I just am starting up a campfire convos on Sundays, every second and fourth Sunday of the month. Just a free group for midlife women to come in and really create some synergy around being seen and heard and validated for what we're navigating in marriages, maybe single life, menopause, right? Career changes, building a business, all of those things. That eventually is going to flow into a membership, a community membership. I'm calling it my online social club. And then, of course, I've got my private coaching, right? So I've worked with hundreds of women in my private coaching, and I love what I get to do there. And that is obviously a lot more personal, in which we really take what it is that you're searching for and where you need to get unstuck in your life, which is often within ourselves, and get you to a place from here to there in a shorter amount of time than you try to do it on your own. Because I tried to do it on my own for years, and it took me a lot longer than it needed to, if I was willing to ask for help.
Well, I will tell you, I think one of the great things about you is just how open you are. I originally, for the listeners, I originally found Renee on TikTok, and I just was loving her videos and her content because she is really breaking down the rawness of caring for an aging parent, for the rawness of working through the identity shift of this is who I was, this is who everybody expects me to be, and who am I now. And so I really encourage all the listeners to find her on TikTok, connect with her on LinkedIn. Of course, we'll put all of her all of her info of how you can connect with her in the show notes, of course. But just I think that's something that's really endearing about you and lovely about you is just your realness and your willingness to just be authentically who you are and just put yourself out there and talk about it. And I love this Sunday campfire social thing that you've got going on. That sounds like so much fun. I'm absolutely going to tune in. I love the idea of, obviously, of creating a space for women where women can connect and just hear, sometimes you just feel so alone and you feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm going through all these things and nobody would get it. But there is, in fact, an army of women that would absolutely get it. And I think that's a really cool thing that you're creating, and a space for women to just come in and connect with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Okay, a kind of a fun question. You've moved multiple times, traveled solo, completely reinvented your life. What I am really really interested to know this. What part of your journey has surprised you the most about yourself? I mean, you've done some wild things, and for somebody that's been sitting in a career for so long and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine it." Or they've hesitated. Like I'm just dying to know which what surprised you about yourself? What part of the journey mostly surprised you about yourself?
The one that I'm in right now.
Really?
Hmm.
Why? Why is that?
Well, being an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, right? You're doing your business on your own is not just about building a business. It's the greatest personal development journey you'll ever go on. And for somebody who spent a lot of time, learning how to take care of herself through therapy, through coaching and whatnot, um, this has uncovered every single shadow, and I'm sure there are more. So I say every single, there are more. Every shadow that carried into this place in my life, because when you're not depending on a system to hold you up anymore, and you can only depend on yourself, you've got to figure out what are all the buried, like fear of visibility, like getting out online. I never had social media before becoming a principal. So that is a place where I get to learn how to better speak my truth, not be fearful of other people's judgment. Right? I had a big fear of rejection, fear of visibility, fear of abandonment. I mean, there's all kinds of fears that I had. This journey that I've taken in building my business has uncovered so many of those fears that I carried with me pretty much my entire life. And I've had to work through those in order for my business to thrive and be successful. So, out of all of them, I mean, most people will say Mexico, like moving to another country as a, single female at 45. I'm in it right now. I'm in it right now.
That is so cool. And also a testament to the idea that we're always, hopefully always growing and changing. Like you're saying, like the time right now is the most like surprising, exciting, like wow, like it's again just a great testament to when you are continuously trying to create change in your life and do better for yourself, for your own person and the life that you have, it can continue to surprise us and be
Yeah.
exciting and thrilling and how great to be able to release some of those fears that you talked about, to be able to release some of the, I always say like we're all carrying around a different bag of shit, right? To be able to release some of that stuff, what a freeing exercise. Okay, we're getting to the end here. So at it's not that serious at INTS. We have a series called our WHIP series, which is our Women in Power series, where we highlight amazing women doing amazing things. But the WHIP story is really about how they got through something hard and what they're learning from that, or what they learned from that. But being a WHIP can mean, or being a woman in power can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So when you hear that phrase, what does being a WHIP, being a woman in power, mean to you today?
That they can fully lead themselves without with dismissing all of the noise and distractions around them that are telling them to be somebody that they don't want to be. So it's something that I work with in my coaching, whether I'm doing leadership coaching or life coaching. It is really helping women to lead from within first, right? Really getting clear on what their truth is and how they want to show up in the world, first for themselves and how that exudes to others. A woman in power is somebody who knows herself so well that nobody is going to get her off track.
I love it. Oh, I love this so much. I have loved talking to you. I've loved hanging out. I appreciate you coming on the show. Again, we'll put all of Renee's amazing content, all of her, the ways you can get in touch with her in the show notes. But I really appreciate what you're doing and what you're building. And I think the more networks and the more communities where we can bring women together and provide some kind of not necessarily normalcy, but just a community to say, hey, like, you're not alone. And there are many people, many women going through this right now, trying to figure it out as well. I just love what you're doing. And you're such a colorful, fun, lovely person. So thank you for sharing your amazing self with the women in your network and now the women in the It's Not That Serious network. It's lovely to chat with you, and you're so inspiring. And I hope every woman takes from this conversation, just go for it. Just go for it. What's the worst that can happen is that you find something amazing about yourself, or you release one of your fears, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See you next time. That's a wrap on today's episode of Carrie, It's Not That Serious. If this conversation resonated, subscribe and share it with a woman in power in your life. You can find more conversations, more community, and all the fun INTS merch you love at itsnotthatserious.com. We're building something meaningful here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it. Until next time, remember, it's not that serious.